we're going to talk about the first half of Boston Legal Season 2. And I didn't realize I had paid that much. I didn't see the 1 in front of that price tag. We would have got it at a half price sale, I think, but oh my gosh. And I'm having a smoothie, and that's what James is having. Some baba ganoush, some cauliflower rice, bread with some
Sardines?
other stuff, and yeah, sardines. And
A lot of colorful things on the plate there.
yes.
It's very impressive.
Yeah.
And it's so much of it is so healthy. So it's very good. I see kale, baba ganoush has lots of things in it.
Anyway. Yeah, and the bread's healthy too.
Yeah, very healthy.
Because it doesn't have any wheat in it at all.
There we go. So it's basically gluten-free and stuff like that. Or well, anyway.
Well, I don't care about that.
It doesn't have GMO.
But I just I try to put healthy stuff in the bread. So it doesn't have any sugar. It has molasses instead of sugar. I don't know if that's healthy or really, but I tried honey in one of the loaves.
Yeah.
But that's just to for the yeast to rise.
It basically gets chewed up, right?
Yeah, but I don't know, honestly, like the sugar should be gone, but I don't know what's left.
Yeah, well,
right?
I mean, if it's a GMO thing, who knows what's in it, you know?
Yeah, who knows what's left.
Yeah.
It's, anyway, but I don't want the sugar left behind with you.
Yeah, well,
so,
the only thing that would like sugar in me is the cancer.
Yeah.
So.
But you are having mango.
Fructose. I'm not worried about that.
I'm not either. I mean, because we're eating the fiber with the sugar, and there's a lot of
fiber in mangoes.
There's that little kale ball.
Yeah, that always has a lot of fiber. It
always
ends up getting stuck in my teeth. So.
It has lots of fiber, and anyway. And the bread, I put psyllium fiber in it to help hold it together too. So there's a lot of fiber in the bread. I'm not really worried. I try to make your bread healthy. Yeah. The homemade pickles.
Yeah, those are pretty. I think I'll put them on the salmon. It's kind of might seem like what a pregnant woman would eat, but
yeah, you seem to like it. So
I don't. It's the salt on it that kind of makes it.
Oh yeah, because we've been finding when we're spending a lot of time hiking, you're wanting to eat more salt, and so am I. Like
like even on the popcorn and stuff like that, I seem to be able to eat a fair amount.
I don't think that popcorn's a very healthy thing to eat, but
I don't know.
Craving it, I think it's the salt.
Maybe it's not as though I'm putting on pounds.
No.
If anything, I'm losing a few. So we, we're kind of happy that we've been getting a lot of rays along with a lot of carb burning time for the.
We'll probably talk about that.
We'll talk about it another time. I want to check with a person that came up with the idea. I'll see how much.
We'll look into some research
he
about it
understood. Well, we want to see how original it is, but I want to see how much he understands. He might only understand 1/3 of the.
Well, we'll do the research. We'll look into it. So anyway, we're talking about Boston Legal Season 2, and we're just talking about the first half of it. I don't know if we'll talk about the second half, but there's an episode in here, and I didn't write down the name of it or pay attention to what it was called. But it's an interesting episode. Boston Legal, they cover a lot of serious topics that one may not actually be informed about otherwise, right? So I like the show for that. And who doesn't like watching these actors?
I mean, they've got some very good actors. And Michael J. Fox, he's doing a different sort of thing. He used to be a snappy talker.
And we forgot to mention Betty White, and when we were talking about
Betty White.
She has less of a prominent role in this season than the other, but still an interesting role.
Yeah,
Interesting.
she always seems to pull off. She
Yeah.
always plays herself, but maybe it's herself. Who knows? But she always plays basically the same character, but she does such
But
a good
everyone
job
loves
of it.
her.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
great. Who else have they? You know, they've had people, big name players, not necessarily good actors. So for one installment, they had Tom Selleck drop in, right? You know, and that guy kind of held on to his looks, or at least up to this point in time. He put on a little bit of weight a little bit later.
But in this show, you had talked about Denny
Denny Crane.
Crane being.
It is Crane,
I
right?
think it is Crane.
Yeah. Crane, Poole, and Schmidt.
Yeah, okay. So you had talked about his name, how you think it means, like, without brain.
Well, I think it would be Denis would be denied, and Crane is Cran, spelled I think with a little circumflex, a little hat over the A. I think is the French for cranium in Latin. So skull, denied skull or something like that.
Okay.
You know, it would have been better if it were like demi Cran, like demi is half, right? Half
Oh.
skull.
Anyway.
Yeah. So it's Alan Shore. I think that's all on shore. You know, they call it. Is that all on deck? Did he say all on shore? Anyway, I think some of these names are coming up.
Maybe. But in any case, Denny Crane is supposed to be like a red, you know, and more like a Republican sort of person. And
Very much so.
Alan Shore,
gun toting,
yeah,
turkey.
and womanizer,
Yeah.
and he's an interesting character,
Yeah.
and he's played well.
William Shatner finally found his métier, which is to play a ham. You know.
Yeah.
The guy's a ham. He's hamming it up in court.
And well, he has some mental difficulties,
Yeah, that's
and
hilarious.
they're
Alzheimer's or
trying to
whatever.
hide it from
Even
everybody,
themselves.
but
Yeah.
nobody seems to notice that he'll
bonkers.
say all sorts of things.
Yeah.
I love the parts like while they're walking from the courtroom and the media are all around and he's just he's mumbling absolute nonsense
Yeah.
things. And
Maybe this is
that's my
what's
favorite part of the show.
Maybe this is what's wrong with Trump. You know, like he just can't say anything wrong for 40% or so of the American public, you know, the American Republic.
And Alan Shore is supposed to be more of a liberal kind
Well,
of person.
you know, he's the Bill Clinton type because he's a harassing type of womanizer too, right? So this is during the Bush era, but you know, like those kind of people should be laughed at too. I mean, Bill Clinton
And
was
really,
a
these two
hypocrite.
have a sort of, they're best friends, but they basically have a sort of relationship. You know, they're basically a couple.
Kind of like.
And anyway, what was I going to say about it? There's a lot of interesting issues in here, but one thing that stands out, like the characters, you're supposed to think, well, Denny is completely backward, right? But really, both he and Alan, neither one of them are honest people or really good people or anything like that. So none of the characters are really good people. They're lawyers, and
Yeah.
one has to recognize them as such,
Lawyers
right?
are liars. So.
And so Alan will say all sorts of things, like he was telling, I can't remember Candice Bergen's character right now.
Shirley
Shirley?
Schmidt.
Shirley.
It's like right?
Okay.
Shirley Schmidt.
So he was telling Shirley that because she was commenting on how he has to stop sleeping with all the young interns or whatever. And so he said, well, you know, it's not really that about, you know, me being interested in young women. It's more them being interested in me. And he's talking about how women are lucky because they just get more beautiful as they age and this and that, and it's like,
And guys
this
get
is not,
go to the sea.
you know, he's giving her a total lie, right? Like, nobody actually believes that, because it's actually, like, right now, you watching me on camera, you will be not as attracted to me as you would have been had I been ovulating at age 25 or something. It's just a fact. Because they found that through studies with women, like, say, strippers will make more money when they're ovulating than they will the rest of the month. It's just, they make more in tips and whatever, or waitresses make more in tips. It's just a fact, because men pick up on it, and that's not even just when they're in person, so it's not even a scent thing or a pheromone, whatever. They pick up on it visually. The camera picks up on it, so they can see it when they're not even there. They know when a woman's fertile and ovulating, and, well, I won't be again, so I'm not going to be as desirable. So it actually makes sense why men are, I mean, it sucks. It sucks to be undesirable, but on the same token, it sucks to be harassed by people all the time when you're not interested and whatever, so I get to look at life from both sides now.
Sounding like Joni Mitchell.
Yeah. But anyway, I was going to talk about one particular episode. It was about how people don't notice poor people, or whatever. Wealthy people don't notice poor people. And so there's this man who was asking for money he's on the street while Denny and Alan are passing by. And they don't even notice him, they don't say anything to him. And the guy, he's an African American man. I don't know if this makes any difference to the story. But he picks up a rock and he throws it. He hits Denny in the head with a rock. And so that gets Denny's attention. And the guy says, well, you don't even have the decency to respond to me, kind of thing, you know? And so Denny pulls out a gun and he shoots the guy in the head. But, I mean, it's a paintball gun, so the guy just has paint on his head. But he's, like, totally shaken up, right? And Alan thought that was over the top. And Alan ends up, the guy wants to sue Denny Crane, but nobody wants to go against Denny Crane. And so the guy's not going to get anywhere. So Alan ends up paying him off, and then, well, anyway. So, but he didn't have to, because he would have gotten away with it, is the point that they're trying to make, you know. Denny pays Alan back, but he wouldn't have had to pay it all. He would have gotten away with this because he's wealthy and powerful, and this other guy is not powerful and not wealthy. But Alan's saying, well, he's trying to make it out like, well, you know, this is what it comes to when, you know, people are ignored and then they have to actually grab a rock and to get your no, that's like the poop on my front walk. There is no way. I remember I had a supervisor once. She was talking to the whole group of parks, and this was when I worked in Grand Prairie, and she was saying, I would hope you guys would, I don't know what it was about that she was saying, I hope you guys would say, there's no way I would do that, or whatever it was, or, you know. And the thing is I would like to think most civilized people would never do that. It would never even cross their mind to put up their poop on somebody's front walk. I mean, I don't know this person. I haven't struck up any enemies, I don't think, because I'm basically a recluse, and the only time I communicate with people is through this blog, which I'm doing for free. which people don't even have to watch if they don't want to. So I don't get in anybody's face about anything. It's just not the kind of person I am. So it's not a personal attack, because I can't see anybody wanting to personally attack me, right? So I'm not worried about that, but it's just somebody who they got a kick out of pooping on somebody's front walk and thinking, somebody's gonna have to clean this up. Whatever.
Someone might step in it.
Yeah,
It could have happened.
sure, it could have. But the fact is people don't turn aggressive because they're ignored or because they're marginalized somehow or whatever. No, you're either passive or you're aggressive. You were raised to be that way. Yeah, I hope it's not genetic. I think tends to be somewhat cultural at a very young age. I think that's how it is. If you're
Determined first 3 to 6 years.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. So it's just how you were raised. And there is no way that I would pick up a rock and hit somebody in the head with a rock because they were ignoring me. Or because there's no way I would ever ask a stranger for money. That's an aggressive act just on its own.
Yeah, it is.
So
It's aggressive if someone's related to you and they ask for
Yeah.
money. That's all I gotta say.
yeah. So don't make excuses for people when they're being aggressive. They should not get attention. Aggressive people shouldn't get what they want. It has to stop.
Yep.
I mean, there are passive people who they would never ask. They won't ask for help, and they need it, but they won't ask. And they'll continue to get ignored because they will never ask for help. So they struggle to get by, and they get by. But the aggressive people, no, they'll get whatever they want because they demand it. They'll get right in your face about it.
Yeah, Hutterites, people just don't really notice them. They're kind of,
They keep to themselves.
you know, people don't notice them. They're just background or whatever. I can't see Hutterites going out and throwing rocks at people to get attention. Hey, I'm a Hutterite. I'm a Hooterite or whatever.
Anyway.
That's a cultural thing. You are raised not to be violent.
So that's all I really had to say about the show.
Hmm?
But I love it. I love the show. It's really interesting. I hate the theme music. It's the worst music ever.
Worst theme music, but
So bad.
there's some bad rap out there. But
Yeah. But I'd highly recommend watching it. I wouldn't recommend buying it for what we paid for it, because that would have been an oversight. We would not have meant to pay that for it.
it might have got marked down. It's hard to say.
We would
Was
have
it,
seen
that was
the
the
first,
Sally? Was it?
It was
No,
MCC,
the MCC.
but I would have just never expected it to be 14. I would have expected it to be 4. And so
That's
half
amazing.
price of that, right?
That's not like you.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You're more likely to get half price at 2 for something like that.
yeah.
Anyway, do you want to talk about anything we heard on CBC or anything like that?
I guess we could.
Hmm?
We, what did we listen to? There was a,
Interesting
Interesting.
program about innumeracy, which is
Mhm.
people not being able to understand math and developing mental blocks about it.
oh yeah. And I was going to talk about that, wasn't I? You
Mhm.
start talking, I'll check the time.
Okay.
Or don't start talking, whatever.
Well, I had a mouthful of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Just started talking.
So this was, what was it called? Jump math?
Something like that. And the concept behind it was?
You can talk about it. Okay.
Another mouthful. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, the guy was interviewed on CBC. It was really actually an interesting interview.
What an amazing change.
Mm.
Actually, a helpful program.
Yes.
Go on.
And it reminded me of something that I'd heard about how there's a lot of extra programs for teaching people how to read and write, and different literacy programs and stuff like that. And the person that was talking about it before, I can't remember where I read about this or heard about this, but they were saying that it's a sexist issue or something. It's about sex.
Just say gender issue.
Gender issue. Yeah, that's better, because it's hard to say. Anyway, because men or boys tend to have more difficulty learning how to read and write, and girls or women tend to have more difficulty learning math. And
There are all sorts of exceptions on both sides of the fence.
sure, but at the time I thought, well, maybe that is a point. But then I realized, I gave it more thought, and it's not. It's not a matter of sexism, even though I tend to see things. I'm perhaps, James often says I'm being sexist about certain things, because I tend to take the female side of things more than the male side sometimes. But I will think about things.
What would be an example?
I don't. I can't think of any right now. But I'm more inclined to lean that way a lot of the time.
I think sometimes
There are
you
a lot of-
stereotype men. So-
I do. I do stereotype men, and I don't like many of them. And I have to admit that I don't like aggression. So, and since aggression tends to be encouraged in men, and testosterone,
It
I
might
mean,
be genetic as well.
I tend not to like them. So, I'll admit to that. But I try to be fair. Since I recognize that fact, I'm aware of it, and I try to be fair about how I see things. Anyway, so I was thinking about this, and it's not about gender. It's about aggression. It's about the aggressive personality types dominating the education system, and frankly, a lot of systems within the government. So it's encouraged for
Almost all.
yellows and almost all, for yellows and red to be in positions of power and in positions of financial power. So
And influence, which is maybe slightly more.
and in the education system, it used to be that there were more blues as teachers of math and science, and the greens used to teach more of
What
the
we could
younger
call-
children
And the human.
and the humanities. But it switched, and I remember the worst teachers that I had were reds.
Yeah.
And I mean, they tend to be the gym teacher
Gym
type.
teachers, horrible.
And then somehow it ended up, there were a lot of people who seemed like gym teachers, but they were teaching other things, like science or something,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they didn't know what they were doing there.
Didn't care, right?
They didn't know. And then those were the ones who ended up getting promoted to principal. Later, so people would be talking about, oh, do you still run into any of the people from high school or from this, that, and oh, that teacher now is principal and this and that. And it's always the worst ones, it's those worst reds. They ended up getting promoted and then to those positions of power, right? And yellows pretty much took over the English, and I remember some of them were teachers of young children, and when I was young, when I was in grade 1, I remember one teacher, and we'd all talk about, oh, we're so lucky we're not in her class because she's so mean, you know, and we sensed it then. We sensed it, that yellows were aggressive, and we didn't want them to teach us, but they're the ones that they've taken over. There's very few people who should be teaching math now. The blues have been weeded out, and they should be there. And the greens, they help gently help kids learn, so they're not frustrated, discouraged, and scared away from it. And they're being pushed out of the system too. So it's a that's what it is actually. It's not. And the man who was being interviewed, I don't think he saw that at all.
Yeah, could be.
But,
I mean, it is a problem who you're using as teachers. I get the feeling he's a blue kind of guy. If you use a system with idiots, you know,
yeah.
it doesn't matter.
And he was talking about how when he teaches people that are considered to be unteachable, and he has success with them, and they're cheering when he comes into the classroom and stuff because they love it. They love learning this stuff, and he says they can learn this as easily as they can. What were the examples that he gave?
I don't know.
Sports and
I presume it was sports.
Sports and something else,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the point. Is
Video
why,
games or whatever.
Why? Well, it wasn't that. It was sports and something.
It wasn't that, but
It could be music or something, or dance or something. Honestly, that I consider quite trivial. Yes, you need to get kids active, but gym sucks.
it's mainly because
It's
of
because
lousy
of
teachers.
those teachers, because they shouldn't be there, and it actually discourages people from being active, unless you happen to be a red or a yellow. Like,
Oh, they're there to make fun of the
Yeah.
greens and blues, you know,
yeah,
four-eyed kids, stuff like that. They're awful. So
yeah, I really enjoyed that program on the CBC.
yeah, it's important. You know, we were talking in the wake of it about how people need to get numeracy. They have to start understanding figures. They've got to. This is why people don't understand COVID-19. So you got all sorts of alt-left people saying fentanyl is a worse crisis than COVID-19. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you stupid? The fentanyl thing doesn't really. How could it have geometric threat? COVID-19 does. It can get way out of hand. Man, that was one of the stupidest things I've ever heard on the CBC. But I'm afraid it's become something of a trope. Fentanyl, way worse of a threat.